First, cut this. Let's see if we can we work? I need to work. I need to finish the video. Yeah, go there. Go there. Okay. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another video here with me on the channel. I'm Elio Hachit, a landscape photographer from Lebanon. On today's video, I'm gonna share with you my common mistakes that I did as a beginner photographer, giving you advices how to avoid to have these mistakes like I did. So let's jump into the video. I'm gonna start with the most important to the least important, so I put them in order. First thing first, you have to understand the system that you're working. You have to understand how the camera works, the exposure triangle, ISO, shutter and aperture. These are very important. They're so essential. And the composition, there's a full video you can find on YouTube. I will put down on the link below two of my favorite videos that I watched was when I was a beginner, and I took note. It's not bad to take note. I advise you to take note and to write down all the new things that you will hear, because they're all mostly important. For example, when I started alone without like having an idea, I used to most of the time shoot landscape. I rarely shot on a portrait mode. And then on this video, the guy told us try to have every situation to have it in both landscape and portrait. This is one of the example. I'm not gonna go deeply into every situation, but in this video you will find everything you need just for a beginner. It's so important. Don't get excited too much, like going out and shooting a lot of photo but not understanding your camera, how it works. You need to know what's in your hand and how the settings of the camera and the system of the camera works, so you know how to use it. Second thing, check what do you feel like having. You want to be a street photographer, you want to be a landscape photographer or wildlife photographer, because to be honest, each photography, it's deep, big and different. What I mean, in each specific criteria of photography, you need the specific lenses and specific cameras. For sure, you can start with any camera with the beginning with any kind of photography, which I advise you to do, and you should learn from that. But going along the way, you have to learn and to know which camera works properly with you, with the type of photography you're doing. Don't get too excited. At the beginning, when I had my camera, I had my Fujifilm X-T4 and was taking every single photo like I can imagine. That looks good, that looks good. And then when I came back home, I had enormous files in my computers and my computer was dying. So what I advise to you, just take it a bit slowly, take your time, no rush, check with your camera, try to compose, like try to look. You don't need to take the photo, just go forward and back, change your focal length, zoom in, zoom out, change lenses. Just try to imagine before you take your photo and to rush. So understand and imagine in your head how your image will look like before you take it. Next thing is ISO. ISO is a big thing for photography. As I was working and taking photos and I see most of everyone taking the lowest based ISO, I wanted to have the same. And I tried to use that the whole time. I ended up not being so creative because my shutter speed would have to go slow and I have to fix my aperture to be wide open. So that makes another problem by lowering my ISO. You can easily sharpen your image. It's not noisy. We think that it's noisy, but it's not noisy. It's not anymore. We have advanced camera system. You don't find the noise that you're thinking about. Like as long as you're below 800 ISO, the picture is completely fine. And I later on understood that, and I kept my ISO up in between. I use auto ISO. So to have the minimum shutter speed. So I prefer to have a good sharp image rather than a blurry image, because I decided to have a lower ISO because of the image. I wanted to have it better. I took a shot long time ago of a beautiful skyline in Lebanon, in Beirut, and later on when I zoomed in, I saw a lot of this picture. It looks fine, but once you go in deeply into the picture, like you zoom in, you find that it's a bit blurry, and that sets me up so much. And the funny part, I used the tripod also. It was windy and I didn't think. So don't be scared, bump up your ISO. Having a good sharp image, it's better not to have image at all. Blurry image is not fixable. You throw that in the trash. Now we talk about shutter speed. It's linked somehow to the ISO that we talked about now, but shutter speed is completely different and it's more important. Like I said, we bump up the ISO to have a better shutter speed. And there's some situation where you want to have the things blurry or not. Then you have to control that. In my case, when I'm a landscape photographer, I use a blurry image when I'm shooting motioned water, like a river going from below. I want to have it in purpose to be blurry. But if I don't want to have as blurry, I need to bump up the ISO to use a higher shutter speed, especially if you're taking photos of moving subject. If you're in an event or a wedding, you have to have a minimum shutter speed of 100th of a second, if not more. So learning shutter speed is very important for the scenario that you have, to understand it and to use it properly and not to have blurry image. One of the most common thing that we don't know about at the beginning of our photography is light. Light is the most important thing for our camera. The main thing of the sensor is to capture light. The image is a light for the sensor and what we see also. So to have a better image or a beautiful contrast with the image, you need to have light. If it's harsh light or soft light, but not like plain white. You just have to look into a scene, understand where's the light is coming from and where's the shadow is, and then you point your camera and you know where you want to have on purpose to have like the shape of this item to be understood. So for me as a landscape photographer, I try to have a low light, like what I mean when it goes sunrise or sunset. If it's midday and the sun is on top and it's a clear sky, it's a harsh picture. It's full of light, it's very intense. It's a bit tough for your eyes to see that. So what I advise is to have a bit soft light and to have it with an angle that helps with having a better picture. You see the angles differently, you see the shapes of the object more clearly. One of the other things that it's also we get caught into is locations. It's one of the best things to have for us to get inspired from other people, but don't get tempted by travel. Like, oh, this person is in another location, I want to go there to see it. I would take a better picture from where I am now. It's not true. Where you live, you can take beautiful picture. It's all about the perfect moment, and you have to at least go and try and find and you compose your own image. You be different than others. For me, in Lebanon as a landscape photographer, I hardly see much change in pictures. Social media is full with landscape photography, but I don't see much like passion in the landscape photography like I see it in other countries. So I'm happy to take photos of my country and to show it in a different look. We're not having here any competition for landscape photography. I'm not lucky with the area here because we don't appreciate much landscape photography, but I love it, I appreciate it. I see what's the main thing about taking photos of nature. I do take picture of landscape photography because it's my passion, it's my hobby. This is what I love. So don't get tempted by the social media that you need to travel to have good pictures. You can take amazing picture where you live and don't get tempted. Now we talk about camera selection and lens selection. It's a big topic. They needed a video alone. So I'm gonna talk about that very fast. It's a short brief of it. I'm gonna make a video on it. On cameras, you should understand the size of the sensor and which properly works for you. So the best thing to do is to do research and to find which is the best for you. What you can do, you can go online and see what kind of photography you like and see the rating of this camera for your type of photography. And for the lens selection, it's the same. For me, I rushed at the beginning. I bought like wide prime lenses, wide zoom lenses for Fujifilm, and I found out for landscape photography, which is my thing that I like, I don't need that. I prefer versatility, which means the widest to the zoomist, like to the longest focal length. I found that this works better for me than having bright aperture. I don't need bright aperture. I need sharp image from the foreground to the background. In street photography, it's a different scenario, or in events photography where you're shooting a person, especially indoor. You need light and you need to blur the subject behind you and in front of you to isolate the person that you're taking picture of. So that's why you need a prime lens. So be aware what lens you need for your type of photography. Don't rush and buy a lot of lenses. Well, if you're rich, you can do that. It's completely fine. But if you're caring about your money and you don't want to spend it like that, it's completely fine. And I advise you to get a used lens, and if you can rent a lens, that even better. You can try it. In my scenario, I cannot rent. I can only buy, and I mostly have my experiences and I'm sharing it with you. Now we talk about bracketing. If you're new to bracketing, you have two options of bracketing, or maybe more. There's more, but these two are important for me and I will explain to you about them. You have exposure bracketing and focus bracketing. We talk first about focus bracketing. Focus bracketing, when you're shooting, if you have like the closest to you to the far to you, you will have something blurry in between and you want to have a sharp image. So some people advise you to have like 3 photos, first, mid, and then the end. I tried that several times and I used the software to combine them, but I found out like I don't need that. It's wasting my time actually, and I need some authentic image. If I'm standing there and I'm looking at a subject, I'm focused on one subject. So you can lower your aperture to f16 or f14 if you have a good lens, and try to have the sharpest you want. And basically you want to have the sharpest which is close to you. So foreground and mid-ground. Like background a bit blurry, not too much, that's fine. So my advice, and that's my personal advice, I don't use anymore focused stacking. It took me a lot. And then I decided not to take photos with that anymore. Now we talk about bracketing exposure, which means you take 3 exposure separately. One underexposed, one overexposed, and then you combine the photo together. I will give you an advice that you need this kind of photography only in 2 scenarios, where you're shooting directly at the sun, or you're indoor shooting and there's a window. This is the only place that I found out to use that. I was excited with it because you have so much dynamic range and you can play with that, but there's no point of it if there's no bright light or no harsh shadows. And when I say indoor, that means also if you go for a cave and then you see an opening with a light coming from it, that's the same scenario like if you're shooting from indoor. You need this shooting position, and you can do this on a tripod, which is more preferable. With my X-T4 I could have done it handheld because I bumped up my shutter speed to be fast, so there's no shake at all, and I had my IBIS inside the camera, so that's helped a lot. Now we come to editing software. Well, editing software, it's a big topic. It needs its own video, but what I will say to you as a beginner, you need editing software. It helps you a lot with your workflow. After you get your photos as raw, you have big chance of editing the photo, like bumping the highlight or lowering the highlight, and this goes for every situation that you can have to. it's like not you have enough information on the JPEG, you need to work also on the RAW. That helps you a lot. And the most common thing is the styles. The styles help you with editing software. You can have your styles inside the computer and you can find some online for free or built in the software. Either it's Capture One or Lightroom. These two help you in a scenario like if you're going out and to shoot and you see that the light is a bit boring, or you want to create your own feeling into this scene, or you want to create your own style, that helps a lot. And you can fix some mistakes that happens with you in the photo. So editing software is essential for every photographer, and it's nice to learn from it and to explore it and to see video to understand more about this softwares. Now we come to filters. Well, I ended up buying so many filters. I had a lot of filters, but at the end of the day I use, I guess, one. The graduated ND filter, GND8 I got. And why I'm saying that? Because I'm not taking any more long exposure shots, and you can do that if it's your hobby, if it's your style of photography to take long exposures. I invested in a new system. I can lower my ISO to 64, which I can slow the shutter speed as much as I want, so I don't need any more ND filter. The CPL, it depends. I bought two CPL filters, which removes the reflection from the water. I found out I don't mind that. It's when there's reflection, it gives the white, it bumps up the highlight, it makes texture to the water, because I'm not trying to capture what's under the water. It's rarely happened to me what I want to capture what's under the water. Maybe you use it, but for me, I didn't use it much. I used the graduated ND filter, and I will tell you why I use this one. I use it because if I go to the sea and there's waves coming in, there's motion happening. I cannot put my camera into exposure bracketing. I don't want to capture 3 photos where there's a lot of motion happening into it. When I combine them on the software, which I did, they were messy where there was so much motion. The computer didn't understand what's happening. So for having graduated filter, it lowers down the light from top and then capture the right shadows from below the foreground where there's no sun, and then you have a perfect image. That's fine, that's perfect for me. I keep it all the time with me, and that's what I use. Now we talk about tripod. Well, at the beginning I used to carry my tripod everywhere I used to go, and sometimes I used it, sometimes not. But at the beginning, where I was started shooting and I see all the videos online, I was excited to use the tripod for any situation happens, like even if my shutter speed was fast, which is completely wrong and waste of time for me. Only if you're planning to wait at this location for something to happen and you've been composing your image the whole day, and like you want to capture this amazing scene when something happened in the sky or some subject is moving, and then you click and you have the composition ready already. I understand that, but having just to open your tripod and to take a photo in the middle of the day where you have enough light, your shutter speed is above 200, it's not necessary. You don't need that. Stop using tripod everywhere. You don't need that. If you want to make a long exposure, it's okay, you need that. So whenever your shutter speed is below 1/20th of a second and you meant to do this, you can use your tripod. You use it also at astrophotography. You use it at when you want to make a blurry image. So like when you can use it also when you're shooting indoor, or you can use the tripod also when you're shooting in a foggy situation also. So it's all about the shutter speed. If you feel like your shutter speed is low, you need your tripod. And if you feel like you want to wait for something to happen big and massive, you just put it there and just wait and just click. So yeah, I advise you not to use your tripod a lot. And one more important thing, it depends on your camera system. If your camera doesn't have an IBIS image stabilization inside the body or in your lens. Just be aware when you use your cameras. One of the two should have stabilization for you to go under 150th of a second. If you don't have any stabilization whatsoever, neither the lens, neither the body, well, you need a tripod, and it's a pain in the ass actually. Sorry to say that, but now new cameras advanced and new lenses advanced. I advise you to have some stabilization from the lens or from the camera. Don't be cheap. I end up buying some small items that I don't need. I use them only once because I saw videos and I was like amused by it from the commercial, and I have like 3 tripods now, but I'm using the tripod which I'm filming now on these both cameras. But in your situation where you don't have a YouTube channel and you need one tripod, you have to research and check. And the most important thing when you do a research, you should read the reviews of other people and know, like I said, know which kind of photography you want. I also bought so many different bags. Here, I can show you. Like a cheap bag at the beginning. I bought this, I think, for $90, and then I invested in that $300. And still, sometimes I think, it's a bit too much expensive. Well, it's not. It's doing its work very good and it's perfect. So make sure to choose and to invest the right thing. Like, make sure to make your research very well. And I advise you with not being cheap also with your computer. I end up buying at the beginning a cheap Microsoft computer, and the screen wasn't good enough because if I lower down the screen I see different colors, if I open the screen I see different colors, if I shift to the side different colors. That drives me nuts. I advise you, if you have a computer already and it's doing fine, maybe you buy a screen like this one, a photography purpose screen. You don't have to pay a lot. This like costs $600 if I'm not mistaken. You can buy something for $200, $300, photography based. It's calibrated from the company. The colors are calibrated, and you can have 100 sRGB color. This is 99% RGB colored. You don't need that RGB 99%. I do printing, but for your situation, if you're not doing printing yet, you can get something with sRGB 99. If you research and you check which is good for you, that would be so beneficial. Now we come to the last advice. Ladies and gentlemen, photography is all about going out and shooting. Without you learning from your own mistakes, you won't get anywhere. If I sit down on my computer and I watch the whole day, I won't learn because I didn't experience it with my own hand. I don't know what I'm reading, what I'm seeing. I need to go there and to see what's happening, to use the camera, to take photos, seeing different scenarios. That's the point. You learn from your own mistakes and you get curious to know more and deeply into photography. And this is how I got. From 3 years till now, this is what it got me. When COVID happened, I was very passionate about photography. I was doing it for the past 3 years, every day by day, just focusing on photography because I like it and I love it so much. And every day I still learn something new. It's never ending thing in photography. It's so deep, it never ends. Never think that you know much. It's always, there's more to learn in photography. That's the beauty about it, and that's why I love it. So don't be scared. Go take photos, check your photos. If there's any mistakes you see, that's completely fine. You learn from it, and this is the point of it. It's for you. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you saw my remarks are interesting and beneficial for your situation. If you have anything to ask me, please drop a comment down below. Let me know. You can ask me anything. I'll try to reply as fast as I can. If you like this video, please make sure to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe. See you on the next video.